Hi, my name is Dr. Campbell-Lane, and we made this video to provide a brief overview of the different kinds of adoption. For over 40 years, our agency staff, under the direction of Dr. Berger, he's a psychologist and the founder of our not-for-profit adoption agency, we have been helping pregnant women and birth mothers just like you. We also help birth fathers and adopting families in all 50 states and all over the world. There are actually many types of adoptions, and we wanted to provide a summary of these to help explain the difference. The first thing to think about is the difference between a domestic adoption and an international adoption. Domestic adoptions are those where both the birth parent and the adopting parents live within the United States. In contrast, there are international adoptions, which is where either the birth parent and baby are from outside the U.S. or the adopting parents are from outside the U.S. or vice versa. While our agency does complete some international adoptions, we specialize in domestic adoptions. Again, that's where the birth family and the adopting family both reside inside the United States. Now, when you're looking at domestic adoption, there's really two types: intrastate adoption and interstate adoption. Intrastate is when the adopting family lives in the same state where the baby is born. When the child is born in a state that is different from where the adopting family lives, that's called an interstate adoption, where there's a crossing of state lines. So the interstate adoption involves a child and an adopting family that live in different states. That's really the only difference between an intrastate and an interstate adoption. Again, both are domestic adoptions occurring inside of the United States. Now, while we're talking about domestic adoptions, whether it's intrastate or interstate, there's really four ways that these can occur. The first we call a public agency adoption. This is when the public agency or the state has a child in foster care, and adopting families can then adopt this child who's been placed in the custody of the state. Commonly, this is known as adopting a child from foster care after the child has been removed from their birth parents. Another way this domestic adoption can occur is through a private agency adoption. When an adoption occurs like this, adopting families do not work directly with the state in which they live, but the families and birth parents work with a private agency, who can be a not-for-profit agency like ours or a for-profit agency. I need to clarify one important point here. The state is still involved, as private agencies are licensed by the states in which they operate. If an agency is not licensed by a state, this should be a huge red flag for you. When adoptions occur through a private agency, there's a lot of other types of adoptions that can occur. Open, closed adoptions. For more information about those, please see the link posted at the bottom of this video. Okay, so another way that adoptions can occur are through what's called a private adoption. There is no state supervision here, but these types of adoptions must adhere to state laws. When birth parents and adopting families have a private adoption, typically this involves one or more attorneys and/or an adoption facilitator, but it typically does not involve an agency. As I said, there's four types, and the final type is actually the most common in the U.S., and that's called a step-parent adoption, which is what happens when a child is adopted by the husband or wife of the child's biological parent. For instance, if I have a child whose father is deceased or out of the picture, legally and completely, and I get remarried and my husband decides to adopt my child, this is a step-parent adoption. At this point, you may be thinking, so what? Why do I care what types of adoption there are? All I want is for my child to have a safe and loving home. As it turns out, there are advantages and disadvantages to each type of adoption, and every type of adoption has different requirements. As I have said earlier, we are here to help you understand this process, to answer your questions and make sure that you fully understand all of your choices and the impact of each. You are welcome to contact us at our toll-free number, 1-800-943-0400, with any questions you may have. A quick side note before I wrap up. I haven't talked about what's called an open adoption or a closed adoption. These are more types of adoptions that can occur through an agency or private adoption. I go over these in a later chat, and if you're interested now, the link for that is posted at the bottom of this video. You may be wondering, what does our agency do? Working with our agency is considered an agency adoption, and our not-for-profit agency conducts open adoptions, closed adoptions, and everything in between, depending on your desires. We've been helping birth parents and families just like you for over 40 years, and we're here to help you with any questions you have. Again, this is only a summary overview. As I'm sure you've guessed, this can all get a lot more complicated. But that's what our agency is here for, to help you understand the process and explain each step along the way. I hope this information has been helpful. If you want more information about this or any other adoption issues, you're always welcome to contact myself, Dr. Berger, or any of our agency staff by phone or email. My best wishes to you and those you love.